James needed a break. The hum of the city had become a constant throbbing headache. The flickering fluorescent lights at work strained his eyes. He longed for open sky, for silence, for a chance to breathe. An electrician by trade, James was used to the feeling of live wires, the energy thrumming through circuits. But lately, he felt the city itself was an overloaded circuit, and he was about to blow a fuse.
He packed his old, reliable Land Cruiser, a relic from his grandfather's days exploring the outback. He tossed in a worn copy of Hemingway, a tattered map of Australia, and enough supplies to last him a week. His destination, the Northern Territory, a place as far away from Adelaide as he could get without leaving the country. The landscape changed gradually. Lush green hills gave way to dry, scrubby plains. The air grew hotter, drier, as if the sun itself were drawing the moisture from his lungs. Towns became fewer, further between. Just the occasional roadhouse, a lonely sentinel against the vast emptiness.
James welcomed the solitude. It was a balm to his frayed nerves.
Days blurred together in a rhythm of driving and resting. He ate simple meals, read by the light of his campfire, and slept under a sky blazing with stars. The silence, once unnerving, became a comfort. He felt himself unwinding, like a tightly wound spring finally released. He was getting away from it all, or so he thought. On the fourth day, James spotted something unusual in the distance. A hill rose abruptly from the flat landscape, its peak crowned with something that looked like a house. Curiosity piqued, he veered off the main road, following a barely there track towards the structure. As he drew closer, the house resolved itself into sharper focus. It was a two-story structure built of weather-beaten timber, now bleached bone white by the sun.
A wide veranda encircled the house, its railings broken and sagging. The windows were dark, hollow eyes staring out at the world. The front door hung open like a gaping maw. The sight sent a shiver down James's spine. There was something deeply unsettling about the place. An air of neglect, of abandonment, that spoke of long-forgotten sorrows.
He decided to investigate. Maybe someone needed help. Maybe it was just the heat playing tricks on his mind. As he stepped onto the creaking veranda, he heard it. A child's voice, soft and melancholic, humming a tuneless melody. He stopped, heart pounding. The voice seemed to be coming from inside the house.
Hello, is anyone here?
There was no answer, only the sound of the wind whistling through the gaps in the walls. He pushed open the front door cautiously and stepped inside. The air inside was thick with dust and the smell of decay. Cobwebs hung from every corner, and the floorboards groaned ominously under his weight. As his eyes adjusted to the gloom, he made out the shape of a boy sitting on the bottom step of the staircase. The boy was very pale, almost translucent, with large, dark eyes that seemed to follow James's every move.
Hello, my name is James. What's yours?
Michael! The boy whispered, his voice like the rustle of dry leaves.
The encounter left James shaken. He couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right.
The boy, Michael, seemed so real, yet there was something ethereal about him. I tried to rationalize it. Heat exhaustion, dehydration, my imagination playing tricks on me.
But deep down, a primal fear whispered that something else was at play. He couldn't bring himself to leave, not yet. He felt drawn to the house, to Michael, as if he had stumbled upon a mystery that needed solving.
I spent the rest of the day exploring the property, trying to find a logical explanation for what I had seen and heard. But the house remained stubbornly silent, offering no clues.
As the sun began to set, casting long, eerie shadows across the landscape, James decided to stay the night. He set up camp in his Land Cruiser, parked a safe distance from the house. But sleep wouldn't come. The image of Michael sitting on the stairs, his eyes filled with a strange sadness, kept flashing through his mind. The night was alive with strange noises. The wind howled through the trees, sounding like mournful cries. Branches scraped against the roof of his car, like skeletal fingers trying to claw their way in.
Every creak, every groan sent a jolt of fear through me. I lay awake listening, my senses on high alert.
The house seemed to pulse with an unseen energy, a palpable sense of something watching, waiting. The boundary between reality and nightmare blurred. Just when he thought he could take it no more, the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon. Relief washed over him, as tangible as the cool morning air. He emerged from his car, stiff and exhausted, but glad to be free from the grip of the night terrors.
I decided to leave. This place held too many shadows, too many unanswered questions.
He packed up his gear, started the engine, and pulled away from the house, not daring to look back. He would continue his journey north, put this strange encounter behind him. But even as he drove away, he couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't alone. He stopped at the next roadhouse, a ramshackle affair with a corrugated iron roof and a dusty veranda. He ordered a strong cup of coffee and sat outside, watching the world go by, or rather watching the lack of world go by. Desperate to break the silence in my own head, I struck up a conversation. I mentioned the abandoned house on the hill, the strange atmosphere, the feeling that the place was haunted.
The only other customer was a grizzled old man in a dusty Akubra hat, nursing a beer despite the early hour.
The old man listened intently, his eyes narrowed, a knowing look on his face.
You found Michael's place, did you?
The old man finally said, taking a long swig of his beer. James froze. The old man knew about the boy. He knew his name. How was that possible?
You know about the boy?
James stammered, his voice barely a whisper. The old man nodded slowly, his gaze fixed on some distant point beyond the horizon.
Everyone around here knows about Michael, or at least the stories.
Over the next hour, the old man, a local rancher named Bill, unfolded a tragic tale. The house, he explained, belonged to the Harper family. They were good people, hard-working, salt-of-the-earth types. Michael was their only child, a bright, cheerful boy who loved to explore the outback.
One scorching summer day, Michael went missing. They searched for days, weeks, but the outback held its secrets close. Finally, they found him, or rather, what was left of him. He had wandered too far from the homestead, succumbed to the relentless heat and dehydration. His parents, heartbroken and shattered, couldn't bear to stay in the house that held so many painful memories. They packed up and left, never to return.
They say Michael's spirit never left, that he's still out there wandering the plains looking for his way home.
James listened, his blood running cold. The old man's story explained everything. The ghostly figure on the stairs, the feeling of being watched, the sadness that permeated the very air. Michael wasn't malicious. He was lost, trapped in a perpetual loop of grief and longing.
Before leaving, James asked Bill where the Harpers had gone. Bill, after a moment's hesitation, provided an address. James knew what he had to do. He couldn't bring Michael back, but perhaps he could offer a small measure of peace to his grieving parents. He found the address, a modest cottage in a quiet suburb of Perth, a world away from the desolate plains of the outback. He told Michael's parents about his experience, about the boy on the stairs, about the sadness that clung to the house like a shroud. He spoke of Michael with kindness, with empathy, trying to convey that their son was not forgotten, that his spirit lived on in that lonely stretch of land.
The Harpers listened, tears streaming down their faces, a mixture of pain and gratitude etched on their aged features. They had never returned to the house, had never spoken about Michael to anyone. The pain was too raw, the wound too deep.
James's visit, his story, offered them a sliver of solace, a confirmation that their son was at peace. As James left the cottage, he felt a sense of closure, a lifting of the burden he had been carrying since his encounter with Michael. He knew he would never forget the boy in the window, the ghostly hum echoing in the stillness. But he also knew that Michael was no longer alone. he had found his peace, and in doing so had brought a measure of comfort to those he left behind. James continued his journey north, the vast emptiness of the outback no longer daunting but strangely comforting. He carried the memory of Michael with him, a poignant reminder of the fragility of life, the enduring power of grief, and the unseen forces that shape our world. He would never forget the house on the hill, the echoes of desolation that whispered on the wind.
The road ahead of me stretched into the distance, a path towards new beginnings, yet forever marked by the scars of silence.